What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Thursday, July 10th edition of the Ship My Money Show. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoney DFS. 7-game MLB slate tonight. Pretty ugly pitching, as Cam already mentioned in chat. We have Spencer Strider at the top. You have Brian Wu in a tough matchup. And then you've pretty much got a lot of shit everywhere else. Going to go through, as always, see if I can get onto the right mic, which is not plugged in, I don't think. So give me a second.
All right, sorry about that. That should sound better, hopefully. So yeah, 7-game slate. Doesn't look like we really have legitimate weather concerns now. It is summer, so obviously things pop up. Keep an eye on the weather as always. But for right now, it looks like things should be okay. Going to go through game by game as usual, talking about ownership, projections, all of that, matchups. I ran some lineups before the show, so I have an idea of how I'd be approaching the slate if it started right now. Obviously, the caveat there is a lot of things will change between now and lock, so that shouldn't be the main focal point, but it is something extra additional to talk about. Going to use the Run the Sims projections that you see on the screen. You can sign up for these using the link in the description below. Use promo code UTAMLB and get 10% off as well. 2 subscription options there. $100 a month gets you the full projections package. Everything you see on the screen, fully detailed projections coming out of our in-house play-by-play sim. You can download them, upload them to whatever lineup builder you use. You can use them to bet props as well. We don't have our own prop tool out quite yet. Still working on that, testing it to make sure it's as good as we want, but that should be coming soon as well. If that doesn't make sense for you, you can also just sign up for the MLB Draft Caddy. That's $10 a month, overlays the DraftKings projections directly onto your lineups page, helps you hand build lineups, etc. You have them all right in front of you. Either of those options are available at the link in the description below. The MLB Draft Caddy is included in the full projections package as well. So getting into it, starting with, again, I don't know why these are out of order. Starting with Seattle taking on the Yankees in New York. Brian Wu pitching for the Mariners. Marcus Stroman going for the Yankees. Around a 5-team total for Seattle, about 4.5 to 5 for the Yankees. 23% projected ownership coming into Brian Wu. This, again, just speaks to how bad pitching really is on this slate. Brian Wu is obviously a good pitcher, not going to take anything away from him, but 24.5% strikeout percentage, big park downgrade going into Yankee Stadium, getting out of T-Mobile Park. Obviously a dangerous matchup against the Yankees, but he is the second highest projected pitcher on the slate behind Spencer Strider. We are a bit lower on Strider than the rest of the industry is, but we still have Strider number 1, Wu number 2, and then a drop off to pretty much everybody else. So he's going to get some ownership here. Obviously, scary matchup against the Yankees. There are strikeouts in the Yankees lineup. They have the highest WRC plus against right-handed pitching this year. They do also rank 7th in strikeout percentage. We have seen an uptick in strikeouts for Wu this season as well. 21.5% K percentage last year, 24.5 so far this year. He's actually seen a little bit of a drop in his stuff, but it still grades out as above average. Very, very good command. Nearly a 110 location plus score. That is the highest or second highest of anybody pitching today. Chris Paddock actually edging him out for number 1. Paddock not on the slate though, so it is the highest on the slate. And again, park downgrade, dangerous matchup, but you're just not going to find anything that is perfect on this slate. Even Strider, not only do you have legitimate concerns about some things that we've seen from Spencer Strider this year, he's also pitching in Sacramento where it's 100 degrees with the wind blowing out. So there is no slam dunk, hey, this is a really good pitcher. He's in a pitcher's park and he's facing the Rockies. Like, that doesn't exist on this slate. So you have to kind of keep that all in mind. Keep in mind that every pitcher is going to have some risk. So going into Yankee Stadium isn't as much of a problem here as it would be on a lot of other slates. On the other side for Stroman, getting 6% ownership, I'm actually getting to 14% right now. He is only 6K. And again, it's just a function of pitching on this slate not being very good. So in a lot of lineups, I think just kind of saving the money, paying down for your SP2 and just hoping for the best isn't the worst idea in the world, especially when that SP2 is not getting a ton of ownership. Like I said, Stroman only about 6% owned in my ownership projections right now. He obviously has missed most of this season. Most recently, 5 innings pitched on July 4th, through 81 pitches, through 74 pitches on June 29th in 5 innings. So each of his last 2 starts went 5 innings through 74 and 81 pitches. Probably not going to be super limited here outside of the fact that he's not great at pitching. But, other than that, I don't think he's going to be on any sort of, or at least not too much of a, pitch count restriction or anything like that. You do probably run the risk of, if he gets through 5 innings at 80 pitches again, the Yankees just pull him because you got 5 innings out of Marcus Stroman. That's kind of found money. But again, getting in here, it's not that he projects well. You can see we only have him projected for about a little north of 10 fantasy points. So it's not like he projects well. It's just a function of saving money, getting a low-owned pitcher, and then being able to get better bats into your lineup. The matchup here is certainly boom or bust. Seattle ranks 10th in strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching. They also rank 6th in WRC plus against right-handed pitching. So plenty of risk here, but again, you're just not going to find risk-free spots. If you go back to last season, Stroman, really hasn't been a good strikeout pitcher for a long time, but if you go back to last year, he was decent at limiting production overall. 167 expected ISO to righties, 162 to lefties. So the hope would be that he's not a total gas can. He's just kind of somebody that can get by for 5, maybe 6 innings, hopefully get some ground balls and give you a decent point per dollar score. And then you're able to win things with bats. Moving on to the hitters here, starting on the Seattle side. Kind of surprised there's not more ownership coming into Seattle, but I'm not really getting to them too much either. So I guess maybe I shouldn't be too surprised. I just kind of expected to see more when I first looked, given that it is a decent matchup here against Stroman in Yankee Stadium. Big park upgrade for Seattle, a team that plays their home games in one of the worst hitters parks in baseball, if not the worst. 5 to 10% ownership basically coming into all of the Seattle bats that you would expect. Polanco, Crawford, Raleigh, Raley, Rodriguez, Arozarena, all in that 5 to 10% range. I'm getting 5 to 6% on Polanco, Crawford, Raleigh, 5% on Raley, less than that on everybody else. So I'm not really getting to too much of Seattle here. They are mostly reasonably priced. $6,300 Cal Raleigh, obviously he's earned that, and you do get the park upgrade for him. $5,300 price tag on Rodriguez is pretty expensive given, what he's kind of done this year. Only a 152 expected ISO against right-handed pitching in 310 plate appearances. Again, should benefit from the park upgrade, but kind of seems like Rodriguez is priced around his name a little more than his actual production, kind of like how he probably made the All-Star team more because of his name than his actual production. So I'm not getting quite as much of him as the field, but overall, I'm in that 5% range on most of these guys. It is certainly a high upside spot in Yankee Stadium. Part of me not getting to more Seattle probably has to do with just some spots that I'm getting to later on where I'm really heavy as well. On the Yankee side against Woo, I'm not getting to them at all right now. 5% ownership coming into Judge, 5% coming into Jazz Chisholm coming off the big game yesterday, less than 5% to the rest of the Yankees lineup. High upside lineup in Yankee Stadium. The case for getting to them, I think, is twofold. One, it's the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. And then two, you are going to probably have 20 to 25% ownership coming into Bryan Woo. So you do get some negative correlation there against him. It is a big park downgrade for Woo, somebody that generally, benefits from pitching in T-Mobile Park. Now going into Yankee Stadium, he has allowed a 189 expected ISO to lefties this year, only 141 to righties. 28% K percentage against righties, 21% against lefties. So obviously Aaron Judge is always, if you're going to the Yankees, the priority. But outside of that, Judge just being so much better than everyone else, you would, I think, be wanting to target left-handed bats first, which gives you Jazz, it gives you Bellinger, it gives you Dominguez, all probably hitting in the top 5. Austin Wells, if he's in the lineup, gives you some power upside at catcher as well. So both sides of this game offensively are ones where I'm not really getting to it right now, but at least in my head, I'd kind of like to have more. I certainly think they are interesting spots at low ownership in Yankee Stadium. But again, I think you have to put everything in context too. Like I was saying about Bryan Woo, where, the fact he's facing the Yankees isn't quite as much of a deterrent on this slate as it would be on others. You don't have good pitching on this slate. So like every other game we get to is going to be pretty favorable offensive spots as well. That's probably helping keep things in check too. But if you are going to the Yankees, I think, in addition to Judge, the lefties match up the best with Woo. If you're going to the Mariners, I think it's kind of just get to the best Mariners bats that you can. Hope to take advantage of them being in Yankee Stadium. Tampa Bay taking on Boston in Fenway Park. So another good hitters park here. Taj Bradley on the mound for the Rays at 8,200. Walker Buehler going for the Red Sox at 6,900. Bradley getting 15% ownership. I'm getting to 15%. Buehler getting 7% ownership. I'm getting to about 10%. Walker Buehler is not very good, but it is a pretty good strikeout matchup against Tampa Bay. Another boom or bust spot like we saw in that Yankees game. Tampa Bay is 7th in WRC plus against right-handed pitching. They are 13th in strikeout percentage. So there are some strikeouts to be had here, but they are a good offensive team overall. Buehler this season striking out 20% of righties, 17% of lefties. Righties have actually done more damage than lefties. 215 expected ISO against Buehler compared to a 158 expected ISO for lefties. So right-handed power bats for Tampa Bay are going to stand out a little bit more probably. Yandy Diaz, Junior Caminero being the best right-handed power bats. Don't shy away from Brandon Lau, Jonathan Aranda, Josh Lowe. These guys are still good. They still have power. But it is worth noting that you have a park in Fenway that plays up right-handed home runs more than left-handed home runs. And you have a pitcher in Buehler that's given up more both actual and expected power to right-handed hitters so far this season. On the other side for Bradley, you have seen a big drop-off for him this year, striking out 20.3% of hitters compared to 26.5% last year. Stuff plus grade is down 9 points from last year. He's never had good command, and he still doesn't. Fastball velo is still good at 96 miles an hour, but you've really seen him take a step back. And again, you have this spot against the Red Sox where, on the one hand, there are plenty of strikeouts here. The Red Sox active roster ranks 3rd in strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching, but it is a game in Fenway Park. They are 13th in WRC plus against right-handed pitching. You've seen Bradley really struggle this year. 20.5% K percentage to righties, 20.1% to lefties. He has been decent at limiting power. Righties only have a 119 expected ISO against him. Lefties at 169. So that is, kind of working in his favor. In the past, he was somebody that actually would give up some power, but get a lot more strikeouts. This year, even though he's not getting strikeouts, he is limiting power a little bit better. So 2 more pitchers in risky spots that I think the field's pretty much got it correct. 15% ownership coming into Bradley, 7% to Buehler. Offensively here, certainly don't mind getting to either side. For Tampa Bay, 5 to 8% ownership pretty much coming into Aranda, Caminero, Simpson, Kim, Diaz, Lau. I'm a little north on a couple of these guys. 9% Brandon Lau, 9% Diaz puts me a little bit above the field. Not going too crazy on either one, but ahead of the field there. I'm even with the field on Ha-Seong Kim. I'm a little bit over the field on Danny Jansen. If he's in the lineup, he's cheap, has some power in Fenway. Even with the field on Simpson, Mangum, Caminero. So mostly even on Tampa Bay with a couple of exceptions. Talked about it with Buehler. He has struggled with limiting right-handed power specifically. So I think in addition to the guys that, you normally want to play from the left side, Lau, Aranda, and Lowe, a little bit of a bump here, especially in this park for Diaz and Caminero. They are pretty expensive though. That's, keeping how much I'm getting to in check at least a little bit. You can see, pretty decent home run projections on these guys. 0.16 to Diaz, 0.17 to Caminero, 0.16 to Lau, Aranda. Those are the guys you're going to be targeting here for home runs from Tampa Bay. On the other side, for the Red Sox against Bradley, 12% ownership coming into Duran, 5 to 8% to pretty much everyone else. I'm getting to 10% Duran. I'm getting to 7% Abraham Toro at only $3,100, 6% Narvaez, 5% Story, and then down from there. So another secondary offense here for me. It is a good park for power, particularly for right-handed power. Duran is still reasonably priced at $4,500 for somebody that gives you some stolen base upside as well. Both, I think, just sort of secondary stacks here. Very similar to Seattle, very similar to Tampa Bay, or New York rather. Just, good hitting environment, decent but not great pitching. Certainly teams that you want to get to. I think that there are better teams later on, but happy to get to really any of these 4 offenses, certainly high upside spots. Guardians are taking on the White Sox in Chicago. For Cleveland, we have Logan Allen. For the White Sox, we have Jonathan Cannon. Jonathan Cannon getting 10% ownership here at $6,400. I'm about 2x the field on him, which I have no confidence in. I hate it, but find something on this slate that you do have confidence in, and I'll probably call you a liar because I don't know where it exists. So 10% ownership to Cannon. I'm at about 22% right now. 25% ownership coming into Allen at 7,700. I'm getting like 3% right now. Maybe this comes up as the day goes on. But right now, to me, it kind of just looks like a spot where the field is going to sort of converge on the pitcher facing the White Sox because there's nowhere else you can really go that you're going to be confident in. And I think he's fine, but I don't really think he's that much better than pitchers that are cheaper. So I'm saving salary and getting to Stroman. I'm saving salary and getting to Cannon. Again, not that I like either of those options or think they are great options. It's just I don't really love Logan Allen either. You can see we have him projected for like 11.5 DraftKings points. That's in line with the bat. Stochastic's quite a bit higher, but that probably just drives up the ownership as well. Looking at some of the Sims tools, they are, or Allen rather, is showing up quite a bit, particularly in Stochastics. So that's something that drives ownership up. That is one reason I have him projected for so much ownership here. So again, I think Logan Allen is fine. He's facing the White Sox. It's a good matchup. He's an okay pitcher, but I don't think he's, far and away better than these other options that are cheaper either. And that's reflected in the way that he's projected. 17.5% strikeout percentage through 83 innings pitched this year, below average stuff, below average command, averages 91 miles an hour on his fastball. Like, he's not a very good pitcher. It's just a good matchup. And so I think, at least right now, the way he's being projected across the industry, I think you kind of see ownership gravitate towards him. And I don't think he's that much better than alternatives that are cheaper. So that looks like a stand I'd be taking right now with the way I have his ownership projected, is just kind of expecting the field to flock to him. And then I can just find other not very good pitchers to play instead. But it is obviously a good matchup here against the White Sox. For the Guardians offensively, you are getting some ownership here against Cannon. Not surprisingly, I'm not getting as much as the field, given that I am getting to a good amount of Cannon. He's not a very good DFS pitcher, not a very good strikeout pitcher. He is okay at limiting power, particularly to lefties. 21% K percentage against lefties this year, 168 expected ISO, only a 14% K percentage and a 203 expected ISO against righties. So you have seen reverse splits from him. You are probably going to have a nearly entirely left-handed lineup for Cleveland. And I do buy into the reverse splits. Against lefties, he has a cutter. He throws 38% of the time. That is a pitch that generally plays better against opposite-handed hitters. He follows that up with 27% usage on his changeup, a pitch that generally plays better against opposite-handed hitters. So again, not saying that I think he's great against anybody, but I do think there's reason to think he is better against left-handed hitters than right-handed hitters. If you look at swinging strike percentage on his pitches that he throws to lefties and to righties, 12% swinging strike percentage on that cutter, 15% on that changeup. You look at the pitches he throws the most often to righties, he throws his sinker 32% of the time with a 2% swinging strike percentage. He throws his sweeper another 25% of the time with a 6% swinging strike percentage. So it's really easy to explain why he at least has decent strikeout numbers against lefties, and they're pretty much non-existent against righties. Again, this isn't to say I have confidence in him, but if you were going to, pick out a lineup for Jonathan Cannon to face, it would be predominantly lefty. I've talked about it before with Cleveland that Steven Kwan and Jose Ramirez really drive down the overall strikeout percentage for this lineup, but there are guys in here that will strike out outside of them. It's not a lineup where top to bottom it's low K guys. It's more so that the average is pulled down a little bit by guys like Kwan and Ramirez. So 11% ownership coming into Naylor, 10% to Santana, 18% to Ramirez, 8 to 10% to pretty much the rest of the lineup. I'm not really getting to them. I think they're going a little bit overowned. I think that they will be pretty popular against Cannon. There are plenty of other spots I want to get to. So again, this isn't that I love Cannon. It's not that I hate Cleveland, but it's really just an ownership thing, I think. On a slate like this, where you do only have 7 games, where a lot of pitching projects very similarly, where a lot of offenses are going to project very similarly, I'm generally going to be a little bit more adjust a little bit more. I can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but adjust a little bit more to ownership than I would on, a full slate or a slate where I think ownership is coming into a spot that is clearly best. For example, I know I'm getting a lot of Atlanta. I know Atlanta's going to be popular. I'm fine just getting to Atlanta because I think they're far and away better than anything else on the slate. Whereas to me, Cleveland is Boston, is Tampa, is New York, is Seattle. I don't really see much of a reason to be playing them at really high rates. And I think they will get pushed up a little bit because outside of Ramirez, they are cheap. So they give you that value component in addition to projecting pretty well. That is the type of spot that does tend to get pushed up by Sims, get overinflated a little bit. If I look at my ownership compared to industry, I do think Cleveland bats are likely to come in a little bit higher than they're being projected. So that is something else that is probably keeping me away from them a little bit. On the White Sox side against Allen, I'm not getting quite as much of them as I kind of thought that I would, given that I'm not getting to Allen. Luis Robert, 4% projected ownership. I have 9%. Miguel Vargas, 3%. I have 3% projected ownership. I have 8%, but I'm 5% or less on everybody else. So is the field. So this isn't a spot where I'm really taking a really big stand against Logan Allen. It's more so, I think, just hoping that, Allen probably has a decent game. He's facing the White Sox, but hopefully I can get a similar game from Stroman or Buehler or Cannon, one of these cheaper pitchers, hopefully can kind of just keep up with Logan Allen would sort of be the hope across my lineups. But Luis Robert coming in at 3,500, Vargas coming in at 3,400. I do think those are both pretty solid low owned values here against Allen. So far this season, right-handed hitters against him, 203 expected ISO, only a 127 actual ISO. So he's been pretty lucky at limiting power to righties so far. Don't think that's backed up by the quality of contact. He only strikes them out 17.5% of the time. I don't mind trying to get to some right-handed bats that do actually have some power. The problem is that for the most part, those are non-existent on the White Sox, but Robert and Vargas do give it to you at least a little bit. Edgar Caro, if he's in the lineup at catcher at 2,800, not a bad value option either. Washington taking on St. Louis. In St. Louis, Mike Soroka on the mound for the Nats. Miles Mikolas going for the Cardinals. I do have a bit of a stand here that, again, I'm not comfortable with, but is what it is. Michael Soroka, $8,500 price tag. Third highest projected pitcher for us on the slate. If you noticed that earlier, behind Strider and Wu, you get a little bit of a drop off from Soroka to anybody else. Our model is a believer in Soroka's talent level. I personally am a believer in Soroka's talent level. This is somebody that you have to keep in mind has a really lengthy injury history. And prior to that, he was actually a highly regarded prospect for the Braves. He showed immediate success when he came up to the majors at 21, 22, 20 something. He was really young, came up, had success with the Braves, had a variety of injuries. Then he goes to, I think it was the White Sox. He's not really that good there. Had some success out of the bullpen, wasn't good as a starter. Nobody's good for the White Sox generally. Goes to the Nats and seems to just have refound the ability to be a good major league pitcher. 63 and a third innings pitched as a starter now this year. 26% strikeout percentage, 95.5 stuff plus grade is still below average overall, but it's up several points from where he was last year. His command has been very improved from last year. 102 location plus grade, 91.2 last season as a starter. So a 10.5 point bump there. Fastball velo is up 1.5 miles an hour over where it was when he started last year. So across the board, you've seen improvement from Soroka. Now, it's not an ideal matchup here against the Cards. St. Louis ranks 8th in WRC plus against right-handed pitching. They are a difficult team to strike out. They rank 26th in K percentage. So the matchup here is not what you would hope. But in terms of talent, I think Soroka is one of the more talented pitchers on this slate. I really don't mind getting to him, even at a relatively expensive $8,500 price tag. He's projected for about 10% ownership. I'm getting to 22%. So I'm about 2x on Soroka here. Miles Mikolas getting 7% ownership. I'm about half of that at 3%. He is 7,300. Again, I'm just going to go cheaper and go to Cannon, go to Buehler, go to Stroman and be just as unconfident in them as I am in Miles Mikolas. The dude is not good at pitching. He doesn't get strikeouts. The matchup against the Nats is not a great one either. You can exploit the bottom of their lineup and get some strikeouts there. They have young hitters that are unproven that probably aren't quite ready for the major leagues, wouldn't be up there on competitive teams. But the top of this order is actually legitimately good, specifically James Wood and CJ Abrams. But Luis Garcia is a good hitter. Nathaniel Lowe is a good hitter. Josh Bell's a good hitter. This is not, your typical 15 to 20 game below 500 offense. They have legitimate star power at the top. Miles Mikolas, again, not a good strikeout pitcher, only striking out 15.8% of lefties this year with a 281 expected ISO allowed, striking out 16% of righties with a 213 expected ISO allowed. Mikolas, when he was quote unquote good or at his best, was never a very good strikeout pitcher, but he was at least pretty good at limiting quality of contact, not giving up power. guys like that usually fall off pretty quickly. And I think that's what you're seeing with Michaelis here, where suddenly he's not doing as good a job limiting the quality of contact, and you're getting high expected power numbers to both sides of the plate. Through 87 and a third innings pitched this year, only a 16% strikeout percentage. His stuff plus grade is down 5.5 points from last year. His pitching plus grade is down 6 points. His command is still good, but it's down about 2.5 points from where it was last year. And guys like Michaelis, who is also averaging a full mile an hour less on his fastball this year than last year at 92.2 miles an hour, guys that throw 92 miles an hour in 2025 cannot afford any drop off whatsoever in their command, even if it's still above average. Like, it needs to be unbelievably good to get away with throwing 92 miles an hour in the major leagues when you have hitters as good as they are, currently. So tough, just not a good pitcher. Not that he's getting a ton of ownership, but I'm even less than the field right now. For the Nats here, I'm a little surprised that they don't have a higher total. Right now it's coming in at like 4.5. Probably just has to do with the park. Most games on this slate are in favorable hitters parks. You have Yankee Stadium, you have Fenway, you have whatever Sacramento's Sutter Health Park, Sutter Health Field, whatever that is. You have Angel Stadium, you have Petco. So that's probably what is keeping things in check here. Not sure of the weather in St. Louis temperature wise. Looks like around 90. Dropping off, as it gets later, obviously. Busch Stadium is a stadium that will play much better for offense this time of year than it does at the beginning of the year and the end of the year. It gets humid in St. Louis. It gets hot. It's very similar weather to the Mid-Atlantic, if anybody lives there or is more familiar with that. Very similar weather. You get hot and humid in the summer. You get cooler in the fall and the spring. Ball doesn't carry as well in those months, but in the summer months, it will actually carry in Busch Stadium. So a little surprised the Nats total isn't higher against Michaelis. 5% ownership coming into Wood, 5 to 7% basically to most of the offense. I have 9% James Wood right now. I have 9% Luis Garcia, Josh Bell, 7% CJ Abrams, 7% punt catcher in Riley Adams. So I'm a little north of the field on Washington, but not going too crazy with them. We do have a very high home run projection, as you can see on James Wood. Nothing surprising there. He is absolutely phenomenal. Looks like a true superstar going forward. 295 expected ISO, 415 expected WOBA against right-handed pitching this year. CJ Abrams at 177 expected ISO, 362 expected WOBA. Nathaniel Lowe, 179 expected ISO. Josh Bell, 217. You can't play Bell and Lowe together, which does make stacking Washington a little bit more difficult. Then you get down to the bottom of the order where there is, upside, I guess, in guys like Brady House. He is a relatively highly regarded prospect, but House, Lyle, Adams, Young, certainly not guys you're confident in. But 1 through 5 for the Nats, I think, are actually, good hitters. In the case of Abrams and Wood, better than good hitters. And the matchup here is pretty good. So I do like the top part of that order. I am getting to them a little bit more than the field. On the other side for St. Louis, 5 to 10% ownership to most of them. Wynn, Burleson, Contreras, Donovan, all in that range. I'm getting 5% win. I'm less than that on everybody else. Again, just bullish on Michael Soroka as a pitcher overall. Other places in the industry are lower on his projection, and as a result, they're just naturally going to be higher on the Cardinals. So I'm not getting quite as much St. Louis as the industry is likely to, as the field is likely to. And mostly that's just a function of thinking Soroka is good. And then also just having, more Soroka in my lineups than the field is likely to as well. Atlanta taking on the A's in Sacramento, where it is 100 degrees with the wind blowing out. Spencer Strider, likely to be the highest owned pitcher on the slate. I have him. I don't have him as much as I think the field is going to. Right now, I'm projecting Strider to be quite a bit more popular than other places are. I have 68% projected ownership coming into Strider. We have a lower projection on Strider than anywhere else by a couple of points. We still, like I said, have him as the highest projected pitcher on the slate. But other places have him projected, 3, 4, 4.5 points higher than any other pitcher. I think it's just going to be a spot that pops up for people in general. I know he's grading out really, really well in multiple Sims tools that I looked at before the show. So I do think he's someone where, he's being projected for I think 50-ish% ownership in general in other places. Stochastic, I think, has him quite a bit higher, but other places have him around 50. I have him at 68 here. I think he gets a lot of ownership. Because I think it's just going to be one of these spots where either the ownership projections stay relatively low and then Sims tools tell you to play him, or ownership projections just come up and they end up being right. So I think you end up in this like 60 to 70% range on Strider. I'm getting to 38%, so I am still playing him. Like, it would be pretty risky if you're playing a lot of lineups to just not play him. He's still the highest projected pitcher on the slate, but there are a lot of red flags here. For one, I already mentioned it a couple times. It's 100 degrees with the wind blowing out in Sacramento. Jake said, is the projection difference due to bias, different lineup projections for A's, other? Possibly a combination. I'm not sure. I didn't look what projected lineups other sites have. Whether or not you have Jacob Wilson projected in will obviously project your strikeout projection a bit. We have him in right now. So if he's out, Strider's strikeout projection obviously increases by some, just by taking Wilson out of the lineup. But it's also just a function of how, at least probably, again, like, I don't know what goes into other projection systems. I know that we factor in stuff from this year, and Strider across the board just isn't the same pitcher. So somebody like Strider, where, he's coming back from injury. He's thrown 55 innings this year. His stuff plus grade is down from last year. His command has been bad. It's down from last year. His strikeout percentage is still good, but it's well down from where he's been in the past. The more that you're regressing him to be the pitcher he was prior to Tommy John, then the higher your projection is going to be. The more that you are saying, look, I'm aware that the underlying baseline for Spencer Strider is very, very good, but also he's not shown that he is anywhere close to what he was prior to surgery this season. The more you're weighing that in, the lower your projection is going to be. So factoring in that he at this point projects as a good but not elite pitcher based on everything we've seen from him this year, I think that's probably the difference as well. And I'm happy to be on the side, especially in a case like this, where you have a very clear-cut reason that you would expect or see a drop-off, whether you call it rust and he gets back to where he was, or you just call it injury and from this point forward he's just a good but not great pitcher. I would, like, if I have to choose, am I going to project Spencer Strider tonight to be what he was prior to surgery or what we've seen year to date? I would lean more toward the year to date side anyway. When you have, especially, as many different red flags in him, it's not just, strikeout percentage is down, but everything across the board looks good. I think the strikeouts bounce back sooner than later. His stuff plus grade this year is, for his career, it's 115. This year it's 98. For his career, his location plus grade is 97. This year it's 94. For his career, his pitching plus grade is 110. This year it's 92. Like, all of that stuff, the command has not been good. The stuff has not been as good. Both of those things individually are legitimate issues. His fastball velocity, if I can find it, maybe. The stuff plus grade on his fastball specifically is much lower than it has been in previous seasons. Fastball velo this year, 95.6 miles an hour. For his career, it's 97.4. Like, I just, even putting aside the fact that they're in Sacramento with the weather, I don't think Spencer Strider should be projected the same way that he was prior to surgery at this point. There's just so many individual red flags on him. It's not just like one simple fix. I don't think it's not, the velocity's there, the stuff is there, he's just missing his spots. It's probably rust. He'll get back sooner than later. He's missing his spots. He's not throwing as hard. His stuff isn't playing as well. He's not getting the same strikeouts, even though he is still getting strikeouts. So I think, it's just, the more individual red flags you have, obviously, the less likely it is that anything corrects immediately. So I don't want to, I don't want to come across as like thinking Strider is completely dust or broken or a bad player or anything. But I do think it's likely that he is rostered at a higher rate than he should be on a slate where you don't have any pitching to be confident in. And a lot of projection sites that people use heavily are giving him a 3.5 point advantage over Brian Wu, not to mention others. So to me, I think that's the big difference, is one, thinking that he's going to get a lot of ownership because of how he's projected elsewhere. And then two, thinking that he's better than Wu in terms of projection, but not by a huge margin. And then obviously, better than everybody else on the slate, but still by a smaller margin than elsewhere. So I'm getting the 38% Strider. I do think that's likely to be around half the field, 2/3 of the field, somewhere in there. JP Sears getting 1% ownership. I'm getting to 2%. Nothing really to say there. 7,100, not a good matchup against the Braves, even though, outside of yesterday, they have been a favorable matchup lately. But great hitting conditions, tough matchup. Sears struggles with right-handed power. Braves have it in abundance. You're going to get probably an entirely right-handed lineup outside of Matt Olson. Sears allowing a 218 expected ISO to righties this year, 17% strikeout percentage. He has struck out 24.5% of lefties, 165 expected ISO. But again, you're probably only going to have Matt Olson, who, by the way, hits left-handed pitching really well anyway. And other than him, probably entirely right-handed. Maybe you get Michael Harris in there from the left side, but that could easily be Fairchild also. So really, really tough spot for Sears, which gets us to the Braves here. They're going to be popular. I think they should be. I'm well over the field on most of them right now. I just don't think that they are really getting as much ownership as they should, even though they're probably, I think, going to be the most popular team on the slate. It's just one of those spots where, I don't think their ownership gets, at least with what I'm seeing right now, I don't think their ownership gets steamed to the point that we were seeing with the Red Sox on, all of the Rocky series, where sites are projecting guys on the Red Sox to be 8% owned and they're actually going to be 22. I think Atlanta probably comes in a little bit more popular than they're being projected, but I don't think it's by as big of a margin. I have 26% ownership projected to Austin Riley, 24% to Acuna, 15 to 20% to Ozuna, Albies, Olson, Murphy, Profar, and then a drop off, sub 10% to everybody else. But I'm okay with those numbers on this slate. I think the spot is that good. You have a team total north of 6 on the Braves. You have not only a high team total, but a spot that is very, very likely to result in home runs specifically. Good home run park, good home run conditions, a pitcher that gives up a lot of power. This is as good as a 6-team total can look. It's even better than in some cases when you get these in Colorado, because you have a better home run park. Even though, Colorado is a great park for scoring runs, they do have a massive outfield and it's usually not 100 degrees. So this is as good a spot really as you can get, I think, for home runs specifically. If the slate started right now, I would have 81% Austin Riley. That is an insane amount, obviously, but it's a 7-game slate. You don't have a ton of great third base options. He's 4,400, so he's still really cheap. I've been playing a lot of Austin Riley in general anyway. I'm just kind of jamming Austin Riley here, hoping that obviously he comes through. But against left-handed pitching since the start of last season for Riley, 230 expected ISO in 206 plate appearances. I have 48% Acuna right now at 24% owned, so I'm 2x there. I have 38% Ozuna, basically 2x. 35% Albies is basically 2x. 23% Olson is slightly above the field. I'm even with the field on Murphy, Profar, Harris. So I'm just jamming Atlanta here, mostly getting to a ton of them. And I'm fine with it, even though they are popular. This is another reason, though, and I mentioned this, I try and mention it at some point every show when I'm talking about my personal player exposures. You have to keep in mind that everything goes hand in hand also. I was talking about being over the field on Stroman, being over the field on Cannon, being over the field on Soroka. None of those were spots that I'm super comfortable with or confident in. The more Atlanta that I'm playing, the more I need to not be playing Logan Allen probably and be willing to play more of Jonathan Cannon or Soroka at 10% owned instead of Allen at 25%. If I'm not playing Atlanta, I can go to more of the probably popular SP2 against the White Sox. So that's something you have to keep in mind too, is everything goes hand in hand. The more Atlanta I'm playing, the more I am going to be willing to play 5 to 10% owned pitchers that suck. So that's another reason probably that I was getting over the field on those guys, is that Atlanta is a clear priority for me right now. On the other side, for the A's, I am getting to them as well, and they are not getting any projected ownership right now. Maybe that comes up, but they're not getting anything right now, and I'm getting to them, and I like it here against Strider. You're getting negative correlation against what I think is going to be a pitcher in 2/3 of the field's lineups. You're in great hitting conditions in Sacramento, as I mentioned. Lawrence Butler projected for 3% ownership. Langoliers 3%. Less than that to Kurtz, to Rooker, to Wilson if he's in. You just have no ownership coming into the A's. And yeah, maybe that does get pushed up a little bit, but I do try and account for what I think is likely to get bumped in my ownership projections, and the A's really just aren't showing up that way for me right now. So I'm getting to 29% Butler. I'm getting to 15% Kurtz, Rooker, Langoliers, Wilson, not really getting much of anybody else. But, again, it's obviously not a good matchup against Strider. He is still a good pitcher, but you have good hitting conditions. You have heavy negative correlation against the field by going to the A's. 177 expected ISO allowed to righties this year, 163 to lefties by Strider. So not horrible power numbers, but it's not like he's been elite. I like mixing in the A's here, especially assuming that the ownership holds at very low levels. Texas taking on the Angels, another game with a high total here. Jack Kahanowitz pitching for the Angels. Patrick Corbin going for Texas. Corbin, 7,500. Kahanowitz, 6,200. Both guys projected for 10 to 11 DraftKings points. And here's another one. $6,200 Kahanowitz, 5% ownership, 22% of my lineups. This is, like I was saying before, this is twofold. It has nothing really to do with Jack Kahanowitz. I personally think he's not a very good pitcher, and certainly not a good DFS pitcher. It has to do with, one, I want to play the Braves, and two, I don't think Kahanowitz is really, from a range of outcome standpoint, much different than almost any pitcher on this slate other than basically Strider and Wu. You have just a bunch of pitchers in this same projection range. Like, when you consider range of outcomes, standard deviation for pitchers, all of that, anybody in here basically has the same range of outcomes. Obviously, the higher medium projection guys are slightly better, but in a one-game sample, range of outcomes for any of these guys is pretty close to the same. And some of them are going to get ownership and some of them are not. The ones that are not, especially the cheap ones that are not, are just going to show up in my lineups because of the lack of ownership and just wanting to get to the Braves. So again, Kahanowitz himself, not a good DFS pitcher, good ground ball pitcher when he's on, doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. I think he probably should get strikeouts. He throws hard, he's tall, but he doesn't. So far this season, he's only struck out 15.5% of hitters, despite averaging nearly 96 miles an hour on his fastball. His command has dropped off massively this year. 100.4 location plus grade last year, only 90.7 this year. That is obviously a big drop and not what you want to see. But going to him here really has nothing to do with his talent. It just has to do with accepting variance and wanting to get to the Braves. On the other side, Patrick Corbin, 7,500, 4% ownership, 6% of my lineups. He's more expensive than the 6K pitchers that I'm rolling the dice on. He's been fine this year. Tough matchup for him. Very dangerous matchup against a right-handed heavy Angels team that has a lot of power. 18% strikeout percentage for Corbin so far this season. Right-handed hitter specifically, striking out 17% of the time with a 183 expected ISO, 347 expected WOBA. So if he were 6,200, I'm sure I'd be playing a bunch of him too, but I'm not really getting to that 7 to 8K range as much. I'm pretty much getting to Strider, Wu, Soroka at north of 8K, and then just rolling the dice on a bunch of shitty 6K pitchers. Offensively here, Texas is likely to get some ownership. Corey Seager projected around 20%. Everybody else in the 5 to 10% range. I'm getting to 16% Seager against Kahanowitz. Goes without saying, he's going to look pretty good here at 4,500. I'm getting to 5 to 10% of Garcia, Heim, Semien, Smith, Berger, Higashioka. So I'm mostly in line with the field on Texas, maybe a little bit below. But I am, in non-Kahanowitz lineup, still mixing in some Rangers bats because, again, I certainly don't think Kahanowitz is a good pitcher. 200 expected ISO allowed to lefties this year, only 119 to righties. So again, that's at least some sort of thing to hold on to if you are getting into some Kahanowitz. You'll probably get a pretty balanced lineup here. Smith, Seager, Carter, Heim from the left side, and then Semien, Garcia, Langford, Berger, Higashioka from the right side. So you do prefer left-handed bats here. Again, Corey Seager looks like the best hitting play from the Rangers. I think it would be very difficult to argue with that. I'm getting to a lot of the Angels. I like this one a lot against Corbin. Just a lot of right-handed power, a lot of guys that hit the ball hard or strike out, and a pitcher in Corbin that doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. Obviously, you will get right-handed relievers later on in the game and lose that platoon advantage, but still plenty of power against righties for these Angels bats as well, in addition to a lot of strikeouts. Jorge Soler, 10% ownership. Zach Neto, 10%, around 10% to Soler, Neto, d'Arnaud, Adele, Rengifo, Trout, Ward, pretty much most of the Angels lineup. And I think that it's warranted and probably too low. I'm getting to 28% Soler. He's only 3K. I'm getting to 27% Neto. I'm getting to 23% d'Arnaud. I'm getting to 13% Adele. I'm getting to 11% on Rengifo, 10% on Trout. If Ohapi's in the lineup instead of d'Arnaud, then it's pretty much the same thing. Ohapi rather is 3,500. He has massive power as well. So I really like the Angels here. I'm getting to them a lot. They are cheap. They have power. Neto gives you some stolen base upside as well. So I like getting to the Angels here. I think they are going a little bit overlooked. And then finally, we have the Diamondbacks taking on the Padres in San Diego. This would be a spot to target some pitching if the pitching wasn't Randy Vasquez. Randy Vasquez, $6,600, taking on the Diamondbacks. Tough spot for him. Eduardo Rodriguez is $8K. 14% ownership coming into Rodriguez. I'm getting to 18%. It's a tough strikeout matchup for him against the Padres, but he is one of the better strikeout pitchers on the slate. 24.5% K percentage through 76 innings pitched this year. No problems, just hoping for the best on him. Getting right around the field at 18%. Randy Vasquez, not a good enough pitcher for me to even play him at low ownership on this slate. 3% ownership. I have 1%. He is just unbelievably bad at getting strikeouts. You can see the 3 projected strikeouts for him. 8.6 fantasy point projection is not high enough to really be getting into my lineups. The Diamondbacks are a good team offensively. They don't strike out a lot. Their active roster ranks 17th in strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching. They rank 2nd in WRC+, tied with the Dodgers, tied with the Cubs. Really tough spot for Vasquez, who so far this season has only struck out 12.5% of hitters in 90 1/3 innings pitched. Offensively here, Diamondbacks, another team coming in with a team total around 5. Sub 10% ownership across the board. Sub 10% ownership for me as well. Corbin Carroll getting about 8% ownership. That is the high mark. He's in 5% of my lineups. That is also the high mark. I certainly wouldn't mind getting to more of the Diamondbacks because, again, Vasquez is not good. But it's just tough when, I think that the pricing on the Angels combined with the power upside makes them a priority. You have the Braves, who I clearly think are a big priority. Right now, I think the A's are a very good contrarian stack, and they're pretty cheap for the most part. So it just becomes tough to, get to a $5,900 Carroll combined with $4,400 on Perdomo, $46 on Naylor, $6K on Marte. It's just a relatively expensive stack for the guys that you would want to get to. But if you can make it work, great. The problem, too, is just like I really don't want too many lineups that have 2 of the non-Strider Woo options. It's bad enough having one of them. So, there's that issue as well. On the other side for the Padres against Rodriguez, 5% or less ownership coming into everyone. 6% Bogarts is my highest owned guy. So I'm not really getting to offenses here. Eduardo Rodriguez, the guy I'm getting the most of from this game. So to recap what I am getting to, you can see the highest projected pitchers in our projections on the screen. In terms of my player exposures, if the slate started right now, Spencer Strider, even though I'm below the field, still my highest owned pitcher. Brian Wu, Jonathan Cannon, Michael Soroka, Jack Kahanowitz, Eduardo Rodriguez, Wu, Cannon, Soroka, Kahanowitz, Rodriguez, all coming in about the same, getting 15% Bradley and Stroman as well. So I'm really, really flat at pitcher for the most part. Strider, 38% is my highest owned pitcher right now. And I think, again, that's going to be quite a bit lower than the field. For offense, for hitters, starting at catcher, again, highest projected players on the screen. My highest owned catchers right now, Travis d'Arnaud or Logan Ohapi, whichever's in the lineup. Maybe you get both, which would kind of suck from a stacking standpoint, but it would give you 2 high upside catchers to play. Sean Murphy. Oh, one other thing I will mention there. If you get Ohapi and d'Arnaud in the lineup, whichever one is DHing does have a relatively high pinch hit risk. Not that they're a guarantee to get pinch hit for, since they are both good hitters overall, but whichever one is DHing does run the risk of a lefty hitting for them against a right-handed reliever. Did just want to mention that. Travis d'Arnaud, Sean Murphy, and Shea Langoliers, my highest owned catchers. At first base, Matt Olson, Nick Kurtz, Yandy Diaz, Josh Bell, my highest owned first baseman. At second base, Ozzie Albies, Luis Rengifo, Luis Garcia, Brandon Lau, my highest owned second baseman. Third base, Austin Riley by an absolute mile. Yohan Moncada, Junior Caminero, but again, 81% Austin Riley right now. Ridiculously high, like unnecessarily high, but I'm also okay with it. There's just not that many third basemen I love. Jose Ramirez is getting ownership. Like, obviously, he's a good play. Josh Smith is getting ownership. He's obviously a good play against Kahanowitz, but I'm fine just kind of having Austin Riley a ton. If that comes down some, like, cool, but Austin Riley is kind of just like the third baseman for me. Shortstop, Zach Neto, my highest owned shortstop, followed by Corey Seager, Jacob Wilson, if he's in the lineup, getting some Ha-Seong Kim and CJ Abrams as well. And then wrapping it up in the outfield with Ronald Acuna, Marcell Ozuna, Lawrence Butler, Jorge Soler, Jurickson Profar, Brent Rooker, Joe Adell. Pretty much if you play outfield for the Braves or in Oakland, Sacramento rather, I'm getting a lot of you. Also, if you play outfield for the Angels, you look good as well. Overall stacks, Atlanta, Angels, Athletics, Texas, Washington, the top five. 5-man stacks, Atlanta, Angels, Athletics, Washington, and Tampa Bay are the top 5. Home run pick, I'm going to go ahead and go with Austin Riley. He is actually highest in our model right now. So love him in DFS. Love him as a hitter overall. I'm not saying to go bet that. I have no idea what the price is, but I will take him as my home run pick. Neil said, why did you choose a handsome avatar for the thumb instead of a realistic one? You're going to have to ask Davis Maddock why he finds me so good looking. I had no say in it. So that wraps this one up. Thank you for checking out the show. Good luck on your lineups tonight. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up button, turn on notifications, all that stuff. Also use the link in the description below and promo code UDAMLB to get 10% off of our MLB projections. See you all back here again tomorrow.